Hello, and welcome to the Artist Pivot Podcast. On this episode, I am joined by self-proclaimed pivot connoisseur Micah Dawanyi, who has journeyed from being a competitive soccer player to a storyteller, illustrator, novelist, and speaker. Micah opens up about his transformative pivot into the arts following a forced departure from sports due to medical issues. He shares his insights into how grief from such life pivots informed his artistic expression and creative journey. Micah also discusses his unique approach to writing, where illustration often precedes the narrative, drawing from his insights into creative expression. As an author of 3 books, Micah reflects on the slow processing of emotional experiences, the importance of recognizing personal artistic processes, and dealing with vulnerabilities and impostor syndrome. Together, we explore themes of artistic resilience, accepting and making space for emotions, and the beauty in the unconventional paths of artistry. My takeaways from this episode are to jump before you can overthink, because I sometimes deal with analysis paralysis, and to try and find peace in every pivot because you deserve it. All right, let's get into this episode.
Hi, I'm Micah Dawanyi, and I'm on the Artist Pivot Podcast.
Come take a listen and let your inner artist play, creating your dreams step by step every day. If you're feeling lost and don't know what to do, always remember that you can pivot to the Artist Pivot. The Artist Pivot. We Audition is the video chat community where actors can audition, self-tape, rehearse, and get expert industry advice. Get instant self-tape readers through video chat, browse through the dedicated actor meditations, podcasts, and books, meet casting directors in the virtual green room, and also make money by becoming a reader for other actors. If you join We Audition and use code PIVOT, you will receive a 25% discount on your membership. Yes, that's right. We Audition and the Artist Pivot have partnered to bring you this discount. From my own experience, I love being a reader for other actors, and We Audition is so convenient for me when I need a reader myself. Again, if you join We Audition and use the code PIVOT, you will receive 25% off your membership. Link in the show notes. All right, y'all. So today on the podcast, I am very excited to say that joining me is Micah Dawanyi. Hey, Micah, how you doing?
I am good. It's great to be here. I absolutely love what your podcast stands for. I love the name. I am I guess you could say, pivot connoisseur. So
Yes.
I'm excited to be here, and I'm honored.
Yes. Come on, pivot connoisseur. Yes.
You know,
I'm about to put that in the episode description on the podcast. I have the pivot connoisseur,
well, you know.
which we'll get into. We'll dive into that. But my first 2 questions that I have to ask you, because I ask everybody. 1, how are your hydration levels today? Have you had enough water? And 2, if I text you and say, Micah, how you doing? How's your day going? What's going on? But you could only respond in emojis only, what would you text me?
Great questions. Wow. Honestly, my hydration is pretty great. I used to be pretty bad with hydration. And then when I was in college, I had a friend who told me, he was like, Micah, nobody is going to it's hard to kind of drink every hour and be like, ooh, it's 1 o'clock, time for my 4th drink. So my friend was like, every time you eat, just double or triple your water intake when you eat, because then you can keep track of it that way. So I do that now. So I've had 2 meals today, and I had 3 cups of water each time I ate.
Okay.
So I've had 6 cups, and it's, what time is it, like 5? So I think I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And then for your second question, it was, I can only use emojis, right?
Only use emojis, yes.
Gee, that's creative. I'd probably go with the salute. Probably go with that one. Just because it's like, I'm knocking out my stuff. I'm in the zone. I'm waking up. I'm having a very busy Q1 for 2025.
Okay.
And I actually like it. Even though it's very busy, I feel very disciplined and I feel very just on top of everything. When I have too
Yeah.
much time on my hands, I can just like I'll wake up at 5 p.m. and start doing stuff. So I don't like having too much time. So I'm having
Mm-hmm.
a busy Q1, but it's keeping my circadian rhythm in check. Like I'm waking up at a good time. I feel like I'm
Fair.
getting through everything. So yeah, I'd probably go with that salute emoji.
Yeah. So, oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Yes. Thank you for that imaginary text.
of course, yeah.
Yes. Okay. I love that. So, Micah, our now resident pivot connoisseur. Yes. Let's get into it because I know that you are, a storyteller, an illustrator, a novelist,
Yes.
a speaker, but none of that was on your radar, right? Like the way you came into the arts was kind of a forced pivot, if you will.
Yeah.
So if you can give us the highlights of how you even got to be a novelist and an illustrator.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's really great to now look back, because now I can appreciate the journey. I was
Mm-hmm.
very into sports when I was a kid. I was a competitive soccer player. It's actually funny. I didn't like soccer at first when my dad introduced me to the game. And the first year he tried to sign me up for like a league. I was like, no, 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 no. I was like 5 and I was like, no, dad, I don't want to do it. And then the next year, for whatever reason, I just fell in love with the game. I think it was one of the World Cups had happened, and I just fell in love with the whole glamour of the World Cup tournament on that global
Mm-hmm.
level. And then I
Mm-hmm.
joined, and I became a very competitive soccer player. And I always like to say, when I talk about my sporting journey now, every person will tell you like, yeah, I was going to the league and I was like the next Michael Jordan. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to say that. I was talented, but for me it was more about the journey than the destination. I was
Yeah.
just very immersed in the world and it was my whole life and it became such a critical part of my identity. So I'm not going to say like, yeah, I was going to be the next X, Y, and Z, but I just know that when I was in that world, it was everything to me. And my friend
Mm-hmm.
group was dictated based on sports. My
Mm-hmm.
schedule was dictated based on sports. If I had a free weekend, it wouldn't even be free because I'd probably be traveling to a different state or city to play a game.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really enjoyed that world. And so, yeah, when I was 15, it ended very early. Um, I was forced to quit due to a series of medical issues. The most severe was a heart complication
Mm-hmm.
that it got so bad that the doctors were like, we can't clear you. I had a few collapsing episodes actually on the field, which were pretty scary. And I think once that happens, any level headed doctor is going to be like, yeah, we're not going to let you play. And
Right.
I remember taking a few months off and actually working with a lot of doctors and hospitals trying to get the issue figured out. But it became clear after some time, like, yeah, you're not going to be able to play anymore
Mm-hmm.
because there's too many risks involved. And so, yeah, when I was a junior in high school at 15, I just got that world yanked. I got the rug swept out from under me.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was competitive and I also played for my high school, I I just had so much time,
Yeah.
because after school I'd have double sessions and then on the weekend I'd be traveling. So that was just all gone. And then it was just 7 to 3 p.m., go to school, and then do whatever your heart desires. And so I had to just figure out who am I as a
Mm-hmm.
person. I'm no
Mm-hmm.
longer Mr. Ball is life. I'm here for the game, using 10 Kobe hashtags per day. I'm no longer that guy anymore. Who am I
Yeah.
now? What do I love? What can I love? What can I grow in? And so I think
Yeah.
at first it was devastating. I'm sure we'll get into it, but there was a lot
Mm-hmm.
of grief there, grieving a version of myself that didn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But then after, I think that grief was so devastating, it created a foundation where I had nothing to lose essentially because I already lost my
Mm.
love. And so that's
Yeah.
when I just became very curious. I remember joining my high school's yearbook program, and then I took a creative writing class, and I think that was the big change because I had a teacher who recognized my interest in writing and asked me to write a contemporary comedy version of Taming of the Shrew, Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you even mean?
What? Yeah.
And the teacher was like, I just want your mind to be stretched because I know you've been used to like school issued assignments and research papers. Think
Mm-hmm.
creatively. What could that do for you? What could that do for you mentally? And it opened
Mm-hmm.
me up to the arts and creativity and getting
Right.
involved. And so I think that's what kind of pivoted me into art
Yeah.
and getting into speaking and writing. My first book came out during COVID in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on a journey then, yeah, illustrating, speaking, working with different projects, working on events. And
Yeah.
yeah, I've, at this point, I couldn't imagine a world where I wasn't an artist.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
wow.
yeah, it's a blessing, I'd say.
Yes. 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 Very much so. And the fact that you feel like, you mentioned, the grief that you had, that this world was pulled from you, but now you're in a different world that you couldn't imagine not having, right? Like, you're like, I could not imagine not having this now. But before, you weren't even thinking about, right, being an artist and a writer and an illustrator and all of those things. And so with that, foundation of like the grief leading you, did you put that into your first book of like, this is devastating, but how do I kind of rebound from it?
You know, it's interesting. I'm a very slow processor.
Mm-hmm.
And so the grief I felt at that time has only found its way into my third book,
Oh,
actually.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. My first book was, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, but it was nonfiction, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a direct response to the social justice movements that really emerged in 2020.
Okay.
And it was more, so I was more kind of focused on that communal sense of grief in the Black community. And
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of target, there was a lot of misinformation going on at that time about what the Black experience is. And so the book was
Mm-hmm.
called Step Into My Shoes, and it was really just like, take a walk in our journey and look at what
Mm-hmm.
we have to go through. This is not fabricated. And I
Mm-hmm.
even had certain chapters where I had like citations so I could say like, we're not making this stuff up. Everyone's asking, how did we get here? This is how we got here, you
Right.
know? And so that was kind of my first entry into writing. But as I pivoted into novels,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I looked inward because I think novels are an interesting space where
Okay.
you're kind of taking elements from your reality and bending them into the storyline. And
Yeah.
so I think with that and with me being a slow processor, yeah, it took until my third book um, to kind of insert my own grief into my writing.
Mm-hmm.
But the journey has been important. And I think I can kind of emotionally timestamp different periods in my writing based
Mm-hmm.
on what I was thinking at the time. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of happy that it's taken this long for me to put that grief into my work because you can't rush that emotional journey, you know?
Right. Right. I completely understand that. And not rushing the emotional journey, I think also lends itself to artists and creatives in, oh, I need to go in a different direction. Oh, my career isn't turning out exactly how I want it to be, but not rushing the grief of having to change, not rushing the grief of having to pivot, right? And I think we don't, and I'm going to include myself in this, we don't sit in that long enough to go, hey, I can still move forward and not have fully processed all of my grief. But I know I have to make a change. I know I have to make a pivot. I know you're like, they're not letting me back on the soccer field, so I have to make a
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. There was no other way to,
Mm-hmm.
um, to look back. I mean, I do. There are still times like I have a few academy teammates I grew up with who are now professionals.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when I watch them on the TV, it's like, man, I remember the days when we were young and we were all playing together. But
Mm-hmm.
I've reached such a space, I think because I've made space for my emotions and
Mm.
I never gaslit myself into
Yeah.
being like, yeah, you're fine. If I was cooked, I was cooked. And I allowed myself to be cooked, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so now I've reached a mental space where I just appreciate the journey. And there's
Mm-hmm.
no ill will, there's no malice from my past.
Mm-hmm.
I have an appreciation for everything I've gone through and who it's made
Mm-hmm.
me as an artist, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all wonderful. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, yes. Because art informs life, right? Like, or no, I had that backwards. Life informs art. Or actually, well, technically it's both. They can co-mingle, right? But with that, I want to touch upon the fact that you said that it's like no ill will to the journey that you've had, right? And to sit with, oh, I just lost the word you used, but
make the space for those emotions.
Yes, making the space for those emotions. And when you were saying, oh, that's it, not gaslighting yourself.
Yeah.
I'm fine. When it's like, no, I'm not fine, but I'm also still moving forward, right? Like the duality of that, and holding space for like, I'm really hurt and I'm really upset about this, but also I acknowledge that I have to move forward, right? And again, not gaslighting yourself, no matter what the situation is. I'm not fine. Maybe I will be fine in the future, but I'm also choosing to move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you have to reach that space of mental enlightenment, if you will, to be able to even make that kind of statement. And that's why I said it took until my third book, because my third book, it's a sci-fi novel, but it deals with purpose and grieving the loss of your identity.
Yeah.
And I knew when I was going to write about purpose, I was like, I'm not going to slap a feel-good quote over the entire emotional arc of finding your purpose. And that was fueled by my own life. So the characters in the story, they feel an entire tidal wave of emotions as they go on their journey. The main character is a former artist who lost his ability to create and is in his senior year of college. And so he has that duality of like grieving who he once was, and he's still on a journey in the present. And he holds space for both of those avenues because they can coexist, you know. And when we think about courage and moving forward, courage, in my opinion, is very rarely found in the absence of emotions. It's usually found in the people who can feel it all and persevere anyways. And so that's kind of been very important for my art and for just my life, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with that, so okay, you have, y'all, Flex, he has 3 books out right now. And so with the journey, so the first one you were mentioned was nonfiction, and talking about like, this is what Black people are going through. This is what's happening to us. And I want to know what led you into the fiction world, right? Coming from nonfiction led you into the fiction world. And do you find yourself going, oh, okay, I wrote that nonfiction. Great. That was a one-off. I'm just going to stay in the fiction world. Or are you like, I'm going to be open to whatever kind of comes my way to write?
Great questions. I mean, there was a multitude of reasons why I pivoted from nonfiction to fiction. One was confidentiality. I think artists sometimes will have this mindset of like, I do whatever fuels my creativity, but art can't be separated from public ramifications, you know? And so I recognize that if I'm going to be very vulnerable in nonfiction, it's pretty hard to tell a story that only you're involved in. Like, you're going to start bringing up your mother, your father, your friends, your romantic interest, whoever it is. And I was like, that's a massive invasion of privacy for the people in my life. And they expressed that they were not comfortable with certain stuff being out there. And so that was a big part of the pivot. The other part was, it's pretty funny, but I watched the Disney movie Soul.
I love that movie.
amazing movie. Shout out to Jamie Foxx, amazing movie. And I was very inspired by the way they used fiction to talk about an important issue. Instead of just being like, hey, audience, here's me, Jamie Foxx, pointing at you. It was like, just fall into the story and then you can still pull the message yourself. Kind of like putting medicine in juice, you know?
Yes.
And I was like, I love that. I was like, what if I did that? That's kind of the place I got to. And I think that was the pivot into fiction, because then I could pull from my reality and talk about important issues, but put it in a very creative way.
Yeah.
And that was like hitting two birds with one stone. And I just found that really rewarding.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, and I really like the way you put that, putting medicine in juice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, I love the juice, but you're getting the medicine, right?
Getting that healing as well. Yeah.
Bingo, you're getting the healing as well. But right, we're not shoving it down your throat. You are willingly taking it in this juice.
Yeah. So it's perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I really, really like that. And so I want to ask you about how you got to the point where you illustrated the cover of your third book, did you not?
Yes.
So like, how did that even, because like writer and illustrator sometimes can be the same, but most times they're not. So like, where did illustration come in?
Just, that's the beautiful thing about falling into a new territory, is that you never know what kind of beautiful things will happen. You know, I came into writing, even with my first book, it was just to reach maybe 10 people. And if I could put that message out for 10 people, I was going to be content.
Yeah.
And then it just turned into a life of its own. The illustrating came, it was a progression. I felt like having a visual stimulus would inspire the writing. I just felt like it would motivate me, because kind of when you illustrate, you're kind of bringing the concept to life, because you have something materialized, and then you're like, oh, this is for real. Like, it's not in my brain anymore. I'm looking at the art.
Yeah.
And so with my second book, I did the graphic design for the cover. I didn't illustrate. It was more just design and getting kind of technical.
Okay.
But then for my third book, I was doing my master's degree, and we got into storyboarding. And when I fell into that world, I just started illustrating like every day, every week, just very often. And then it just became natural to illustrate the cover for my third book, because I was getting into all these complexities for the storyboards, for writing commercials through my master's, and kind of getting into those areas. So it just became seamless, I'd say. It just translated over. And then I did the cover first before I wrote a word of my third book. But just having that concept materialized, it made me want to write, because I would look at it in my phone, or I'd have the printout, and I'd be like, I just want to write now, because I already have the thing. I just want to like fill it with the words now. So yeah, I'd say it was natural, and it was a form of motivation.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. And that, makes me think of how everybody's process is different, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that, right, you as you said, fell into illustrating because of storyboarding, and you wanted to see the visual first before you wrote the words.
Yeah. It's interesting. My mom tells me that that my process is not more suited, but it could also be suited for filmmaking, because she's like, you do your illustrations first, and then when I plan my chapters, I storyboard them. I don't write like words and make outlines. I storyboard my chapters. So I think,
wow.
Yeah, and most authors don't do that. I've never met an author that does that. But I think visual stimuli, it just really inspires me for some reason. I think that's why films also inspire my writing. So yeah, it's all natural, you know?
Yeah. Yes. And I'm going to agree with your mom there. Like, storyboarding is 100% for commercial and film and TV, because it's like, oh, let's see what's happening. And then we can write the dialogue to go along with it. Right. And you're right. From the writers that I know, it's the opposite, right? It's the words that come first. And then maybe we'll put some images to it, or illustrations for the cover, or what have you. But that is a very unique way to approach that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the beautiful thing, is that there's no correct way to be an artist. You just are who you are.
Yeah.
You know? And I've some of my favorite authors, when they're asked like, how do you make a really complex, beautiful story? They're like, I have no idea. You just do what works, and then you get to the finish line, and you're like, well, we made it. You know?
Right.
So
right.
So that's how I've kind of felt. I'm like, this is my process, and it's evolved over time, but I really like where it's taking me. So
Yeah. Yes, I love, and you know what? I think that's also part of it. We have to love our process,
Yeah.
and well, I think first recognize our process, right? To understand that we're all different, and to get out of what we've been sold as A plus B equals C, right? Because it does not. In art, in life, in life, in art, it does not. And
No.
so to find your own process and to be okay with your own process, right? Because we're all different human beings. So we're all just going to process stuff differently. And it's being okay with that, right? That you're like, this is my process and I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Because art is a form of expression in a way. And often it's like a projection of how you view the world or how you interact with the world. So who are you to go against the natural way you express yourself? Like
Yeah.
you're you. So why would you go against that? Unless it's harmful to people.
Right.
Because, that's where I'm always like, don't just say in the pursuit of art, I can like ruin people's lives. But other than that, if your process is unique, unorthodox, it's your process, and be fine with that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. So my next question to you would be, was there ever a moment in, you know, writing your books or even transitioning, right? And from sports into writing, illustrator, or speaking, because I know you do speaking engagements now. Anytime that like some type of doubt or even limiting belief kind of came into your thought pattern and like how you dealt with it.
Honestly, it's interesting. There haven't been that many moments. I think because I doubted myself a lot when I was playing.
Mm,
Because my heart problems and my medical problems, they were creeping in before I officially quit. And
okay.
the first place that I got hit was mentally.
Yeah.
Before I actually called it quits, I'd mentally checked out. And
Mm,
any athlete will tell you the game is often won in your mind. And so I remember when I was pivoting to becoming an artist, I was reflecting on the lack of mental fortitude I had as an athlete. Not to
yeah.
beat myself up, but just to acknowledge what happened
Mm-hmm.
and say, how can I be better in the future? Um, and doubt is a part of any journey.
Yeah.
So the goal was never to become like an emotionally impenetrable wall where I just don't feel emotions, but
Right.
it was to try to create mental fortitude and recognize how can I create spaces where I can thrive mentally. And one thing I did was I learned quickly to jump into the water before I can overthink. And
Mm,
I have a line in my latest book where one of the characters is trying to figure something out. And he
yeah.
says to his friend, he's like, I don't want to overthink myself into paralysis. And
Yeah.
so I think when we talk about doubt, I will often just like fall into something before I can even think about it. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, okay, I'm in it now. When you
Right.
jump into the water, you have to swim.
You got to figure it out.
You can't be like,
Yes.
man, should I have jumped? Like, I wonder if I like took an extra step or like got like a paddle. You're in the
Mm-hmm.
water now. So sink or swim.
Right.
And that's really helped me because I look back at things I've done and then I go, that was actually really scary. And if I had given that more thought, I probably would have been like, why would I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Even becoming an author, I didn't even realize the magnitude. My first book came out when I was 19. I didn't even realize that that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I just jumped into it and then
Mm-hmm.
I started going through the process. And before I knew it, the book was published. And when I look back now, I would be filled with so much doubt if I actually sat there for a second and was like, oh, I'm going to be an author. Like, I'm going to be in front of people and in
Mm-hmm.
newspapers. So I think that's really helped me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I do it now, even, is
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, jump into the fire, jump into the water, and
Yeah.
then figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's been really helpful for me.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And like that's speaking to me too, because we call it in my neck of the woods, analysis paralysis, right? Where you overthink it so much that you just kind of paralyze yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I know that, and I am raising my hand high, y'all. If you listening to it, but if you watching it, my hand is raised. I can very much overthink things, and that whole just jump into the water before you can actually overthink it, right?
Yeah.
Like I've done some of those things in my life. I mean, even honestly, starting this podcast years ago, it was kind of like you got to jump in. You got, and I will shout out to my accountability partner. She was there. And I was like, do y'all think I can get a podcast together in 6 weeks? Yes. Go.
Do it. Yeah.
And here we are, what, 5 years later, season 7, like.
Yeah.
So, right, you got to jump into the water because you're going to overthink it.
Yeah. I will say, though, and this is, again, emotions exist on a spectrum. So you can contradict yourself in some ways.
Yeah.
Although I've jumped into the water with a lot of things, there have been times when I have dealt with a bit of imposter syndrome. But that's usually like after I'm already in and I'm looking around at the view.
Yeah.
I remember there was a few years ago, a school in Florida mass purchased one of my books and was like, we want to use this for the entire book club. And we want you to come in multiple times over the year. We want to put in mental health initiatives. My second novel was about destigmatizing therapy. So that was like a central focus of the story. And they loved that message. And they were like, we want to have you partnering with this mental health initiative. And we want to have you working with this one in London as well, because we're connected there. When I got in there, I was like, me? Why? You want me to? You want me and my books in there? You sure? Because like I could call X, Y, and Z best-selling author if that's who you really wanted. And like it took some time for me to be like, I'm here for a reason, you know. So I have had moments like that where I've doubted in terms of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But I've honestly just made space for it and then tried to talk to myself through that lens of love again. I think that's been really big for me, is speaking to myself in a positive way, because that over time, it really has helped to build myself up.
Yeah.
And even when I fall into an unhealthy way of thinking, try to make space for that and then build myself back up with that positive self-talk. So that's how I navigated that. But I've definitely had those moments where I'm like, I don't even know if I belong here. I don't know if this is like, are you guys sure? But it kind of is what it is. You're not going to say no. You know, you're not going to
that part.
I'm not
that part.
Hey, you got the wrong author. Maybe move to no one's going to do that. So
nobody.
just get into it. Just get into it. You know?
Right. It's those moments. Where you're kind of, in essence, forced to say yes.
Yeah,
right? Because you're not, nobody in their right mind is going to say no to something like that.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, yes.
Yeah. So you, again, going back to the water thing, then you just jump into that water. You got to do it.
Yeah. You got to do it.
Yeah.
You're right. Because it's like, oh, you guys picked me. They're like, yes, we did. We know what we're talking about. Right.
Yeah.
And it's also one of those, like, once you do write this book, it's like, oh, I'm a thought leader. I wrote a book on this. Like, wait a minute. Right? Yeah. But then you're like, oh, other people think that too. Whoa, hold on. Am I supposed to be here? What's happening? I don't know what's going on. But again, you were in a situation where it's like, you have to jump into that water because you're not going to say no.
Yeah. And I think that often it comes from the idea of being perceived. And you just have to let go of that at a certain point. I think that's where a lot of that comes from. I know for me, I can think about how am I being perceived in the spaces I walk into, but that's not even in my control. So it's always a process of letting go of that and just being myself and walking firmly. But it can be hard.
Very much so. And I definitely think as artists, we're worried about how we're being perceived even more, I think, than the average person because we're putting out something that's vulnerable to us, right? Like we are exposing ourselves and our emotions and the things we're feeling and the things you're writing. You're just like, oh my goodness, yep, the world knows my inner thoughts or like this inner world that I created, right? So there's more of that vulnerability attached to how am I perceived. But you're absolutely right. How somebody perceives you has nothing to do with you. It's out of your control. And quite frankly, who cares?
Yeah. And often it's literally just you projecting as well. Like often you'll be like, oh, this person probably thinks this of me. That's just what you're putting into their kind of, that's just what you're projecting onto them. Like they probably are not even thinking that, you know?
They're probably not thinking about you. They're probably not thinking about you. Like me and my coach here, we always say that everybody is the main character of their lives. So everybody is thinking about themselves more than they're thinking about you. Like you would be, oh, that person's probably thinking, no, they're not. They're thinking about themselves.
They're probably thinking about the same things you're thinking about for themselves.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Yes. Precisely.
Yeah.
Yes. Y'all, they nobody thinking about it. Nobody's step into the rooms that you need to be in, that you're supposed to be in. And also, I love that you said like looking through things, the lens of love, right? Like being positive with yourself and looking at yourself with love, right? And remembering, oh yeah, no, I'm worth this, right? I'm enough. I am worthy. I am capable. I belong here. and reaffirming yourself with that. So what I actually wanted to ask you would be, what would be like your nugget of wisdom, your word of advice, to other artists, right, who want to pivot and who want to maybe jump into the water, Micah. They want to jump into the water. Like, you know what? I've been overthinking. I just got to jump now.
I'm going to go back to my dad is like Mr. Quotes. He's always dropping a good quote. And he will always say when I was growing up, nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you want transformation, if you want something new to happen, take the first step. And I have this analogy I use these days. Picture yourself walking and it's night. It's nighttime. And you have a lamp and it's tied to your feet. And so you can only take that first step to see that next piece of light because it's tied to your footsteps. So you can't look out 30 yards. As you take each footstep, the lamp moves as it's tied to your shoe. So you just have to keep taking those steps and the light is going to continue as you take more and more steps. But if you try to look up and say, where the ferry is 40 yards in the distance, what's going on over there? You can't see that right now.
Right.
You know, so just focus on the lamp tied to your foot, walk, and the light's just going to keep coming. It's going to keep going, and then you'll get to where you want to be once you reach that journey. So I think that's important for artists because this space is all about overthinking and, you know, the vulnerability, like you've said, with being an artist. And you can often think about 50 million things, and often a lot of them are in the future. They're not even things you can control in the moment.
Nope.
So just focus on where you are. Be where your feet are.
Yeah.
You know? And if you can do that, I think you'll immerse yourself in your art truly. You know, and then your process will be all the more transformational.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Mike is speaking a whole word today, y'all.
You know,
I really love that.
The topics, I mean, this is stuff we really go through.
Yeah,
you know?
yes.
I will often, whenever I see conversations between artists, these things are always coming up, you know? So it's not like, these are not things that we can just ignore, you know? These vulnerabilities, these things we think like, I think they have to be addressed.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really important.
Yes. I agree with you. They really do have to be addressed and talked about and in, you know, I like to say a loving, caring, safe space, right? because we do enough self-judgment in our heads. We do more than enough for a lifetime, right? And so it's like in these conversations, all right, y'all, here, because we know we all kind of going through the same thing. What's your version of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, everybody lay the cards down. What do we got? What do we got? Because we have to. This is our community, right? And we're here to support each one, teach one, like we experienced before we hit record.
Yes.
Each one, teach one, right? But that vulnerability that I think, quite frankly, all humans should lean into, but artists do it readily because our art calls for it, right? No matter what it is, whether it's writing, whether it's singing, performing, dancing, making a film, like whatever it is, you have to tap into being vulnerable and your emotions and that place where sometimes you just want to hide, right? But we have to also talk about the flip side of it, right? Of like, I'm having a really hard time right now, even though I'm an artist.
Yeah, because that when people see their favorite artist in 8 minutes on Jimmy Fallon, that is not covering the emotional journey that artist probably has been on. You know, you see him walk out, hey brother, how you doing? How you doing? Mm-hmm. That's just that's a fun part.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really glad that we're making spaces now to talk about these things, because I look at the industry, the arts in previous years,
mm-hmm.
And a lot of people just had to be quiet and suffer, or they felt that way because of the lack of these spaces. So I'm glad that we're all like, yeah, you go through that, so do I. Like, you know, because it's important. And that, like you said, community, that's what keeps us whole in a way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It really does. It really does. And to not feel, I mean, alone, really, right? Like it's, like you said, the glamorous side of the arts, you know, having a book signing, going on your book tour, or opening your cabaret, opening a show. Yes, that is the glamorous side. But people don't see the roller coaster, the emotional roller coaster, let alone like financial, family, whatever it is, but the emotional roller coaster as a human being that you go through by choosing to be an artist and put your stuff out in the world. Y'all, it's a roller coaster. And like, sometimes you just want to sit in a room by yourself and cry.
Yeah. I know I've had those moments. I love that I always say it's important to remember your why.
Yeah.
Keep that as a North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Because that why is going to get you through all the turmoil. And I know for me, there's been a lot of times when I had to just stick to that why and pray and get through it. But it's really rewarding. I think the arts are very rewarding. It's just not, going back to my dad again, like,
Dad with the quotes.
He's just so good with the quotes. He's just that guy. He's always telling me like, Micah, this is not a conventional space. So if you're looking for conventional issues, that's not where you are. But it's beautiful that way.
Yeah.
You know, don't look at it like it's an inconvenience because it's unconventional.
Yeah.
The unconventional makes space for all the beautiful spontaneity you're going to experience. So just because it's, you know, you're going through these very weird things and you may feel like, I don't know if I'm being understood, like, it's still a beautiful space and it's very rewarding once you find that lane as an artist. So I'm always reminding myself of that.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I love it. Micah, thank you so much for sharing. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, this was great.
Yay. So before I let you go, where can everybody find you out here on the interwebs?
Let's see. So I'm very easy. I'm the only Micah Dawanyi in the world. Shout out to my parents for giving me a very unique name.
Yep.
So my digital portfolio, that's where you can find everything. It's linktree.com/Micah Dawanyi, MICAHDAWNY. Dawanyi. That will have my social media, my contact information, my books, which projects I'm working on, my art, interviews I've done. That's where you can find me.
Find everything.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Everybody, that will be in the show notes. So it's easily clickable so you can find Micah. And before I let you go, I must say to you that I acknowledge you, I celebrate you, and I uplift you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's that as an artist, I mean, you must know that means a lot. So thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're so very
honestly,
welcome.
I celebrate you too, because we were talking
Thank you.
When we had our meeting a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was very inspired by what you've been able to do in this space and your journey as well. Some of the things that happened, we talked about like your voice acting journey and how natural it was. And so I was just very inspired because I think from what I'd heard, it was just a testament to standing firm in your art and who you are and letting beautiful things happen to you. So I celebrate you too.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I received that. Thank you. Thank you, Micah. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And coming up on the next episode of the Artist Pivot podcast.
Hello, this is Dale Novella, and I'm on the Artist Pivot podcast. I wanted to make sure that my artistry, that the job that I had was contributing to my artistry, because I was like, it's kind of up and down as a songwriter. You never know if you're going to make money or if you're just going to be, doing it on your own for the rest of your life. So I wanted to make sure whatever I was regularly doing for money was tying into my belief system, and that I could give back to the community some kind of way. So that's how I got interested in teaching artistry.
This show is hosted and produced by me, Ayana Major Bay. Show editor is Kieran Niement. Show theme song lyrics written by Ayana Major Bay and Melissa Victor. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this show with your friends.